Aminah's work was as beautifully complex and layered as the stories and communities they represented. Laura, Chet, Chris, and I were really proud and somewhat humbled to show her work. But more importantly to us was that we could call her our friend. Thank you.
First of all, I must thank Nanette and Carol for inviting me to be among these wonderful people and friends who are celebrating Aminah and her life. Last October, Aminah proposed to me that I do a project for her. She asked me to essentially study, write, and do an exhibition of what is perhaps her most monumental work, a raganon, a textile of seriated panels she titled Themba, that she had been working on since 1958. It is about her Aunt Themba, and I know that many of you in this room have heard her mention that name. She said that I would think her crazy and not to be believed. In that and subsequent conversations, she told me that her Aunt Themba had come from Angola on a slave ship, had a brand on her chest, and had shared with her secrets. Themba was a healer, herbalist, and prophet. She never married, but was a midwife who brought the children of the community into life. Aminah loved the aesthetics with which she lived and strove through her life to emulate her. Aminah's sense of community, her life's work to bind it up literally and with the threads of her narratives of that community in her books and materially with threads in her raganons was a mantle and a mandate that she inherited from her Aunt Themba, a woman who came at the age of 5 in 1858 in the slaver, the Wanderer. The ship is famous in the annals of the history of the transatlantic slave trade as the last ship officially recorded to have come directly from Africa with a slave cargo. There was an infamous trial, as a direct trade was prohibited from 1808, but the money and the prestige of the slaveholding class won the day, and the cargo was sold in Savannah, split among various owners, and Themba, Aminah's aunt, went to Sapelo Island to be taken in by the Johnsons and receive the English name of Cordelia, which she changed to Cornelia Johnson. She came into Aminah's family not by blood, but by love, inclusion, and respect. She migrated after the war to Tennessee and on to Ohio. The rest is history in the spirit of Howard Zinn. It was Aminah's father who made sure that Aminah sat at Themba's knee from the age of 3 to about 17. Themba died at 105 years old in 1957. During her tutelage, Aminah received Themba's mantle as prophetess and binder up of community. Since Aminah asked me to tell Themba's story, I have learned of April Hines' the Wanderer Project, begun when her grandfather found an old face jug on the family's property that they traced to a slave from Edgefield who had made it. Hines has definitively traced 107 slaves from the Wanderer, including this man who worked in the pottery industry in Edgefield and whom she has definitively linked to the face jug tradition. She has also traced from the Wanderer to communities in Georgia, South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, and Texas. Many of these families have a remembered African name of their ancestor, and many were considered healers, herbalists, and prophets. So much of African American history is about healing affliction, the greatest of which has been the wounds of slavery. Aminah, even after your death, you have set us upon a great journey. One of the last things you said to me is that there is a Thimba in every community. Now I know what you meant, and we shall bind up the wound and practice joy.
All of our lives, past and present, are inexplicably woven together, connecting us all throughout all time. My name is Eugene Tynes. On behalf of the Church of Christ of the Apostolic Faith, presiding pastor, Sublican Bishop Eugene Lundy, I would like to extend my church family's sincere condolences to the family of the deceased. I have been Miss Robinson's neighbor since I was a child. I have known of her all of my life, but I just recently met her at her last birthday party. We had a wonderful time, and she was gracious enough to extend an invitation when she received her Lifetime Achievement Award. That was an extraordinary celebration. And now here we are at her memorial. I wish I would have done this poem for her at her birthday party, but I digress, speaking of regrets, so I'll do it for her now. I'm sure she's here. I'm sure she's listening. The title of the poem is The Righteous Woman. This is for you, Miss Robinson, the faithful one. Look at all of my strong, beautiful, righteous sisters. I know how you all grew to be so, building walls, great stone walls, thick with jagged edges. And why not? Who but the brave would dare to scale these massive monuments of pain and time? The ever-shifting barnacles of knowledge protrude, providing ample foothold for all would-be travelers. Don't slip. It would take a man with much heart. His intent would have to be the lion's share, a warrior from conception, conceived to challenge all. Mean mamas, dangerous daddies, crazy uncles, and cousins with nothing to lose. He will be tested, he must, for our all-elusive, righteous, precious queen has been carefully tucked behind these gargoyle-guarded foreboding enclaves to discourage the weak. We have carefully carved a coward's demise with the cutting edge of all mistrust. He will be tested. He must. Who is worthy of such a prize? Fathers ask. Who is worthy? Mothers ponder. The strong, I say, who else but he will be able to carry away the stones once the great wall comes crashing down? Yes, a great queen has transcended, but never be sad over an earthly loss when it's heaven's gain. God bless you, and thank you.
Good day. I am Demetrius Neely from the King Arts Complex, and I thought long and hard about what I would say about Aminah, but I don't want to say too much because I don't want to crack. But I will say that I wrote her a love letter the day she passed away, and I wanted to read it, but I thought I wouldn't read that because that might be too much. I think when I think about Aminah, I think, as they say, if you want to be like someone, you should emulate them. And when I think about Aminah, if you love someone, you should try to emulate them. I think about love, passion, and community. And Aminah loved her community. She made everyone stand a little taller, be very proudful, and created an enormous amount of pride and joy for those who lived in the Poindexter Village. She took that community internationally. So what I think about that is when I think about Aminah, I think if you have a community, a family, a church, an organization that you love it deeply. Be like Aminah. The other thing I think about is I think about passion. You know, Aminah loved to say, I'm always working. It's always about the work. And if you have something that you are preoccupied with, do it deeply. Be about the business of doing it. You would be like Aminah if you did that because she was always working. We had a celebration at the King Arts Complex Thursday night, and it was fantastic. Many of you were there, and I would say to the person, everybody felt like Aminah was in the room. In fact, I think she's here right now. We knew she was in the room because the energy was so positive, and people said things like, "This feels like a homecoming, right? Rather." And people said things. They didn't go home for a long time. I'll tell you, we were like, "You gotta go home. We gotta go home." I think people were. I left with people still there, which I never do, but it was late, and you never leave people in your house. But it was after 9 when I left, and it started at 6. But I would say that it's because people felt so good about the opportunity to celebrate Aminah. And then we served fried chicken and Krispy Kreme donuts and coffee because that's what Aminah liked, right? You want to be like Aminah, right? And everybody enjoyed that. But she's here now, and I would just say, if you want to celebrate her and you want to show your love, live like Aminah. Love, passion, and community. May she rest in peace. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Loanne Crane, and I was a friend of Aminah's, and I don't have anything really profound to say. I was just going to tell a little story about an afternoon I spent with Aminah years ago. Bab Sirak and I had a company, Winning Images, and we sold a lot of Aminah's work. We were sort of early on. We didn't discover her, but we were so pleased when we found her because the work was so fresh and different and special. She's a real artist. Anyway, I was out there one afternoon at her house going over some things, and we got to talking about Elijah Pierce, who was her mentor. And I said that I'd been lucky enough to go down and meet Mr. Pierce and buy 3 of his panel wood carvings, and I was so mad at myself because I have 4 children and I only had 3 pieces. I should have gotten 4. Well, we went back down to buy one, and at that point he had been discovered, and the prices were, for us at least, out of sight. So she, that house she was in was layered with art, packed with art, but she knew where everything was. And she went to a closet and pulled out a little carved wooden statue of a seated man. It had been a present from Mr. Pierce to her, and she gave it to me. And I said, "No, Aminah, this is valuable. You cannot give this away." She said, "You will take it." But it's just an illustration of the kind of person she was. She was kind and generous and unselfish. And I will miss her. Losing Aminah diminished me. Thank you.
I'm William Lawson, and I'm the Director Emeritus of the Ohio Arts Council, professor at Ohio State right now. And I'm so sorry I can't be with everybody today, but I do want to thank the museum for permitting me a couple minutes to say a few words about Aminah in memoriam. This woman was most incredible. I'm thinking about it today and what I was going to say. The phrase that comes to mind is her outer personal fragility belied her inner strength and her worldliness. And I can say that because when I was director of the Arts Council, I met her through Michael Milligan, graphic designer, brought me to Aminah, and I said, wow, Michael, is she okay? She's so thin. I said, Michael, she has so many earrings. And I said, wow. Third meeting, I said, Michael, thank you. This is one incredible woman and has such incredible talent. We've got to support her. And we did. PS1 in New York, she didn't like to fly. We had to send somebody with her. Israel, she was absolutely ecstatic. And we had to help her by having Susie Saxby stay with her. Chile, Daniela Murda in Santiago, her husband, took care of her. Africa, every single time we dealt with Aminah, she seemed so fragile, and I came to know she wasn't. She was so incredibly strong and worldly. Whether she was sitting on a little stool outside the wall in Jerusalem, just taking it all in and looking back and forth, producing those incredible pieces. Could go on and on and on. Funny, when I smoked, we sneaked cigarettes outside of Marlene's gallery. Tell me about that person. Love, gossip. And all the grants, and the travel, and the shows, and the exhibitions, and the people who supported her. The Garrow, Susie Saxby, Carol Genshamp, Marlena, whom I forget, and probably, let me look, I kept one little note here on people so I didn't forget. No, I think I hit and Crane. Everybody in the city that knew Aminah and knew her work supported her. Aminah left us an incredible legacy, and I think we should all applaud that. The museum has supported her for so long, and we're so fortunate to have so many of her works. So Aminah, thank you. Thank you from the Ohio Arts Council. Thank you from the city, although I'm sure Michael will want to say something about that. And thank you on behalf of all of us who believed in you and supported you.
My name is Tony Smith. This is my daughter, Brianna, and we were neighbors and friends of Aminah's in Shepherd. So I wanted to just give a few reflections, and then I have a poem that I wrote, and then Brianna will say a word. She lived in Shepherd for over 40 years, creating a sacred space. Elijah Pierce lived a block away. She was generous, occasionally gifting people like me and Brianna her work, like her mentor, Elijah Pierce, but also practical, admonishing me to sell if I ever needed money. Once I did need money, but a generous friend wouldn't let me sell. What a blessing that was. She was beautifully serene and ethereal, creating a space in her home that welcomed everyone. But her eyes would flash and she would grumble if she felt her work had been disrespected. She was positive, encouraging, empowering to others, almost angelic. But when I stopped to tell her about the latest scuttlebutt, she'd say, "Wait a minute, let me get another cigarette." She encouraged me as an artist. My adaptation of To Be a Drum was nominated for Artistic Excellence by GCAC. Her exhibition, Symphonic Poem, was also nominated. You know the rest. She lived a somewhat cloistered existence, but kept up with everything, calling me to say "good job" once when she heard me on a WOSU call-in radio show. And she would call me. I couldn't call her.
If you knew Miss Aminah, you knew that there was a trick to getting her to come to the door. You would have to bang on the glass, a block window, so that the dogs would bark and she would hear it. And if she felt like answering, then she would answer. If not, you would stick a note through her mail slot, but sometimes you couldn't get it in there, so it would be a trash can right under it. And it would go in the trash can, but she would look through it, and if you would say, "Call me," and she would call you. When I graduated from high school, she sent me a letter and a gift, and it said, "Congratulations, Brianna, from the Pinewood School. We all get to celebrate precious people in our lives, and today I celebrate you. So today we celebrate Miss Aminah.
She was wonderful, really full of wonder, love, peace, and history, and the community of man. And I wanted to read just a short poem that I wrote for her. I shared this with her some time ago when I wrote it, but I've added a little bit to it. Great eyes, ears fully pierced, willow thin, she lived on air and memory. Long hands full of ancient thought, she constructed our lives in exquisite detail. What stories she told. How was her memory so long? As griot, soothsayer, magician, she wove ancestral histories, lavish, full, complete, in thread and bead and blood. She lived her whole life on the Near East Side, Poindexter Village, then Shepherd. Still, she became a global citizen spreading peace. Soft-spoken, reserved, Aminah was like a godmother from another planet, touching young artists with her cosmic wand. You're an artist. And he moved to LA and was Grammy nominated. You're an artist. Baba Jubal grew into master drummer and storyteller. Look at this artist. And Antoinette Savage had her first exhibit. When Baba Rita met her on the road to somewhere, Aminah invited her into her home for a magical mystery tour. What can be said about Aminah? I like what Smokey said. More love, more joy than age or time could ever destroy. Her love was so sound, it'll take about 100 lifetimes to live it down. Evita quoted Stevie Wonder, "Did you know that life has given love a guarantee to last forever through forever and another day?" Scripture says, "But the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace." Peace, Aminah. Thank you.
I'm going to turn this way a little simply because of this light here. The personal things that I would share with you today would be that Aminah loved my fresh ginger beer that I used to make for her. And in fact, when she received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the YWCA, I handed her a small bag that contained 2 large bottles of fresh ginger beer. What I'm going to share with you, I was somewhat inspired by a friend of mine, Pearl Clegg, who wrote a poem, and I wanted to take off from it and just remind us of all the things that Aminah gave. So I speak the name, Aminah Brenda Lynn Robinson, because of the tremendous gifts that she gave in introducing us to Dr. Chickapoo, the medicine man, and the chickenfoot woman, and the brownie skin man, and countless other stories that she shared with us about people and places. She reminded us of the importance of our history, the history of the Near East Side, the history of Columbus. And in seeking truth, she revealed to us universal truths. So I speak the name, Aminah. And she made a great sacrifice, sacrificing her strength, her discipline, her determination, her creativity, and her vision.